We have our next special guest with us, who's become more than a colleague, truly a mentor to me in the United States House of Representatives, Mike Rogers from Alabama. He was first elected in 2002, and he represents the 3rd Congressional District of his state. He currently serves as the ranking member of the House Armed Services Committee. And again, I don't want to make this political and not here to be partisan, but I've set my Starbucks card today that the Republicans are going to win the majority in the fall's midterm election. Which will put Pelosi in the Democrats in the minority and Republicans in the majority. And when that happens, Mike Rogers goes from ranking member of the House Armed Services Committee, even though he's been called chairman a number of times today. He's going to become chairman of the House Armed Services Committee. I served on the committee with him all 3 terms that I've been in the Congress. He may be the ranking member of the Cyber and Innovation Subcommittee this Congress. I'm very excited about what we're going to do together with the majority next term. So with that, Mike, one of the biggest takeaways I want all of our guests to walk away with today is a better understanding of the National Defense Authorization Act. What is it? How does it work? I can't think of anybody better than you. You've been working on it for 20 years now in Congress. What does it mean, and what does it mean to a community like this?
The NDAA is an authorization bill. When you think about Congress, you got to remember there's two meanings to it. There's the authorization process and there's the appropriation process. I describe it like this. In my family, I cannot get my wife to handle a check. Been married for 40 years, she won't touch it. I had to close things when you get here. You don't start any chore around the house. If you're first month married, if you don't want to have your entire marriage. I made a mistake handling the checkbook when we got married, so I still have to do it. Having said that, I'm a probator. She, as a attorney, knows why has to say so. So she's an authorizer. So let's say I had one of my boys won't get a motorcycle. He got to read this, and then get a motorcycle. I'm going to tell him, so I'm not going to get a motorcycle because your mom said it's okay. So you go to her. If she says it's okay, she's authorized it. Then she's going to say, you got to go see Jay and see what we can afford. He's going to come to me and I'll say, what kind of motorcycle you want? I will just know here that it costs $14,000. I'm going to tell you, you got $10,000 this price. That's the appropriation process. That's exactly the way it works in Congress. Our committee is the authorizing committee. We tell the Pentagon what they can and can't do for the next year. And then it's up to them to go to the appropriations committee to see if they can get everything authorized funded. And they can never get it all funded. But they oftentimes can get close to it. That's the basic process. We will start at the beginning of the year, that we have waiting on the president's budget. And the only reason to wait on the president's budget is because the law says we have to. Because you know what happens when we get the president's budget? We ignore it. Then it doesn't matter if it's an Democrat or Republican. We ignore it because it's a proposed budget. We write a budget. The more serious like this every year when the budget comes out. Not just in the best part, but all over. There's residents have weird ideas about the virus. Usually off cuts and keep the money off. It's stirred up. But we wait on it because the law says we have to. We get the presidency that we got to change the law by what? Because we ought to be able to start January with our process. But instead, like we just started the year only this month. Because we had the president's budget come to it. But what happens is when the president makes his budget proposal, we have to have the Secretary of the Defense Department, the service chiefs, secretaries to come in, and they basically have to try to defend the budget. I mean, it's top down. The president says you're going to do it. This is the budget you got. And they all hate it because they don't agree with it. You know, they have to come in, because I say, really, on that meeting, trying to sell it to us. What the services will do, though, is they will then take the president's number, like this year, it's 40%. something like that. And they'll build their budget around that number, like state of the Army. Well, the Army would say that wasn't enough money. So what they'll do is they'll give us what's called an unfunded requirements list. That's the other stuff that couldn't fit in the budget, but they're gonna need it. We get a lot of attention to the unfunded requirement list. And, so back they come in, they make their bosses, we'll do our markup. And, what we did this past year, because the president's budget was so inadequate, we basically took the UFR list, the unfunded requirement list, and we authorized it, because it was a $25 million increase. And we did it on a bipartisan basis, our committee is very bipartisan. And sent it over, to the floor. We did a lot of minutes on the floor, crazy stuff, because the other things that the majority, and they get some crazy stuff, we're the majority, added on. And then we had to wait for the Senate to pass their version, and then we go on the conference meeting where we have members of the House, we have the Senate, kind of work out the differences. And then in the end, there's always a few differences that can't be worked out, and that's when the chairman and ranking member of the House Armed Services Committee, the chairman and ranking member of the Senate Armed Services Committee get room to set those last few issues. Then the bill comes back to each chamber, right there, and we don't let it come out of Congress, but we know we're supposed to pass it. So that's kind of in a brief how the NDA works. It is a huge piece of legislation. It authorizes basically 20% of non-discretionary spending. And it's the only piece of legislation that's passed in Congress every year in 61 years, no matter who's in charge. We have demonstrated that regardless of political partisan positions or whatever, what's going on in the country, we will find a way to make sure our military is authorized and funded and take care of their families. So I'm very proud of it that we get it done. It's one of the things I hate right now is it's really old to get this conversation over the places that are just toxic. But it does make it for people like me and Jim, makes our jobs a lot more work than we're able to see. We could make something happen in the world.
So Alabama has become the epicenter of defense industry. I don't imagine that was by accident.
That's not really true.
So tell us about that. How does the Alabama delegation work together to bring more investment in Alabama? What can you
Sitting up there for a long time, seniority is a big deal. You know, I mentioned how unfair Joe is. He's our senior senator in Alabama, who was recently the chairman of the Appropriations Committee. He is a force to be reckoned with when it comes to appropriations. And if you go to the city hospital, it's one big earmark. The whole city is just, over the last 40 years, just been consistently working and doing the same thing for business. And we're very focused. National security is a big deal in our state. We have a lot of installations, a lot of defense industry there. And we work real hard to nourish that ecosystem, take care of. Our delegation is unusual in that we are very friendly with one another. We get along, we stay in regular communication. In fact, we have floor votes as a general rule. Our legislative directors will contact their counterparts and state controversies, but at this point, we try to make sure we're all voting the same way. We even include our one Democrat in the loop on that. We get along great, and that helps more than you know. I view the companies in my district as constituents, just like individuals are constituents. And so we urge them to stay in touch with us and keep us informed of what they do, what they need. The installations that we have, I got Hampton Army Depot in my district, Maxwell Air Force Base, Fort Benning. Lucky probably realize they got thousands of acres over in the Alabama side of the river that I take care of. But I've also got, Huntsville, based on I've got Fort Butler. Those are in my district that I treat just like they're mine. And I want to make sure that they need. Successful, so I made an effort to stay in touch with them. I made an effort for their leadership to stay in touch with my staff. So that's what I would urge y'all to do, is if you don't have a relationship with your congressman, you can't get one. And you need to get one with his district director and chief of staff. Make sure you can't get Jim out there to do your custodian kind of thing. Get staff out there to see. There's nothing as good as going to see something in person, see what somebody does, see what their infrastructure is like. It makes it so much easier when you do something to help you. Have eyes on the place, seeing the ebb and flow of what you do, rush for you. And plus, you don't want to just first time get your Congress and when your hair's on fire, and you're trying to do something to help you. You kind of want them to know who you are and feel so that when you do need some help, it's much easier to live for everybody involved. And I know that sometimes the aggravation has to bring in staff and do it, but it's working when you need something. And that's just it's just part of what we do. For example, the Annis County Depot in my district, we have a monthly conference call with the Chamber of Commerce, we have the military affairs, liaison, usually other places. We have a depot leadership audit, and we have my office and local senators. And once a month, we go over what their priorities are, what they need, what we do, to make sure that they're healthy and going forward. So basically, communication is the main thing.
We have a lot of big companies here. There's some small companies that want to be big companies. We have economic development leaders, mayors, commissioners, state legislators, and a lot of leaders in the community throughout the state. Do you have an example of something that you look back at over the last 20 years that started off as something as a big idea that somebody had, maybe something that was small that grew into a lot of jobs and investment in your district that we could learn from?
There's been a lot of hospitals, including defense engineering firms and other defense related firms. And I just, again, it goes back to how can we help you? That's what we're there for, to help you with their growth and development. And it's all about communication, getting us involved. We can't help you if you're not involved in the process. But I understand the whole delegation pays a lot of attention to Huntsville, and we try to grow. Even those of us that live pretty ways away out, 2.5 hours to get up there. I get up there pretty regularly because most of the rest of the delegation.
I want to turn it over to all of you before we do. In my time in Congress, somebody's been more focused on Ukraine than you. My very first trip, Odell as a member of Congress, was to Ukraine with you. I'm wondering if you can give us an update. There's a lot here to be encouraged about, but where does it all go from here?
Yeah, that's great. I have spent a lot of time in Eastern Europe. I chaired for 6 years for Strategic Forces Subcommittee, 10 jurisdiction over defense, national security space. And because we have a lot of missile defense over there, I need to go over there everywhere. And one thing I would urge y'all to take a lot of pride in is that when we first went over there, I think you weren't there. You weren't there in 2014 trip, you weren't in Congress. But I was over there in 2014 right after the trip to Ukraine. And you know, the Russians still had more troops in there. They said they weren't their troops, it was their troops. Trying to take more hardcore quietly. So we, along with NATO out, primarily because have had thousands of troops over there since 2014 training the Ukrainian military. Their military was just pretty sad. But they've come a long way in 8 years since then. They are professional military now, and when you see them fighting back as ferocious and effective as they're fighting, you want to take ownership of that. Because that didn't just happen. That's taken years. Did I take you one of those training camps? Well, you did. Yes. And so, you know, we don't have, the thing that I'm disappointed about is we could not get Barack Obama to get into play. We passed the European Defense Initiative, $1 billion back by the Crimea was taken, and he kept sending them blankets, MREs, and vehicles and stuff. They kept asking us, give us something to kill Russians with, That's what we really want. He wouldn't do it. So like Trump comes along, Trump started giving a lethal aid to the extent that the Democrats are in charge of the budget. And then we had some lethal aid that was still supposed to go for the end of last year that Biden just, he wouldn't turn loose. And I can't overstate this. We had incredibly good intelligence about what the Russians were going to do, starting last fall. By the first year, we knew exactly the day they were going to invade, how they were going to invade, and where. I'm convinced, I don't know this for a fact, but I'm convinced somebody in this circle speaking because it's such good intelligence. But so me and my counterpart on the Senate Armed Services Committee now were pressuring the president, and we wanted proof to send him some lethal aid now so that he can get better prepared to use this stuff. And I just philosophically had a view of this than we did. Our position was that the best way to deter Putin from coming in is to make sure they got stuff to fight back with. And Biden's in that position, no, that's going to escalate. If we start sending lethal aid, it's going to make Putin mad, he's going to go insane. So it was just a fundamental difference of opinion. Sure enough, they didn't invade, and now they're trying to send lethal aid, but it's too late, for a lot of that stuff to be as helpful as it would have been. I couldn't believe it could deter it, but he wouldn't do it. We're trying to get it over to it now. We're still having some problems now with NATO. The president, unfortunately, wants to do everything through NATO. And you can't get those rascals to agree on everything. They've got all kind of other political problems over there dealing with energy and how they feel about each other. And they have this kind of rule that if they don't do something, it needs to be unanimous. Trying to get 29 countries over there to agree on a day of the week is next to impossible. So that's caused us a problem, and we have to be mindful that we're concerned about our international strategic national security interests. So what I'm working on right now, I have decided, and Jim will remember, we had the Secretary of Defense and the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs in last week in the posture here. And I have been working with the European commander for over a year to get permanent basing, U.S. basing along the eastern flank as a deterrent. And as the Chairman committee agrees with me on this, we really are bipartisan community. So we want to get those troops over there. Like I had the Yukon commander 2 weeks ago saying, over there, you need to do this. We're talking about existing troops who are going to reposition them from other parts of Europe along the front. You got the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs to say last week, we need to do that. I'm on it. I can't get the Secretary to say because the Secretary is afraid about the President, man. So he gets we're waiting on NATO to advise. So I don't think NATO's going to be able to get their act together. So what I'm working on is we want to put bases in Poland, in Romania, in each of the 3 Baltic states. So I talked with 3 of their ambassadors so far. I've got another thing I'll talk with this week. I'm going to try to get those 5 countries to ask us to put bases over there. I know they can agree. They all want, and then it's going to be our job in Congress to put pressure on Biden to accept that invitation, that formal invitation. That will be one of the best ways to deter Putin from trying to go any further in Poland than Ukraine. He wants to go into Poland, he wants to go into Romania, he wants to go into a lot of places, always. But if there are U.S. bases there, he's not crossing that line. So I'm just a big believer that's a deterrent that we need to do. And Poland is willing to pay for it. The other ones, they don't want to base, they don't pay for it. Poland wants it to pay, they don't pay for it. So that's what we're working on now. I am convinced that Ukraine is going to prevail. It's going to be long and painful because the rest of the NATO countries are not as aggressive as I think we need to be to chill enthusiasm. I will tell you that one of the things I would like all of you to be thinking about and helping disseminate this thought. We are about to have to increase defense spending dramatically. And part of it's just because of inflation. I mean, they brought us up a budget proposal that calculated 2.2% in inflation. As y'all know, we're at 8% right now, and the administration said we may go to 9 or 10. So obviously that number, and even they admitted it in the hearing last week, they're going to have to, over the next few months, ask for more. What we have asked for, me and Jim, all the Republicans on the House and Senate authorizing committees have sent a letter to the president saying we want you to increase defense spending by inflation plus 5%. Because not only do we have to tend to our business that we're dealing with right now, we've got to start this modernization process. When we started, we've got to go through a modernization process. We've been fighting wars for the last 20 years and we won everything we got out, but we've got to transform. Talk about wars of the future. You know, he is on the cutting edge subcommittee on cyber. That, you know, we created the Space Force because space is now a warfighting domain. Cyber is a warfighting domain, and we have got to get after that. Artificial intelligence is going to be a big part of what we do. So we've got to transform the military, and that's going to take some additional spending. And we don't really have a choice because China is the one setting the pace. I'm of the opinion China thinks they are going to do to us what we did to the Soviet Union and just spend us to the point we have to tap out. We're not going to tap out. But what that means is if we get our request this year of inflation plus 5%, you're looking at about a $960 billion NDAA. And that means the next year it's going to be over $1 trillion. So people have got to get these numbers in their mind and understand this is just what we have to do. The pace is being driven by China and by the threats around the world, and we have to spend to meet the threats, not the other way around. And if we want to remain a superpower, and we're committed to do that.
I see Andy Hove and then Jerry Hendricks. Mr. Chairman, I say that in great anticipation.
I like the way it sounds. I tell people being the ranking members like sitting in the front seat of the bus. It's still better to be driving the bus.
We all look forward to when you're driving the bus.
Thank you.
The 2004 Base Realignment and Closure Commission that Carson Banks had asked you about, you know, what had the Alabama delegation learned? It was working, the Alabama delegation as a whole was looking at that well before it happened. Moved major depot missions to Anniston, moved the Army Material Command from Fort Belvoir to Huntsville. One, do you expect there to be another BRAC? And two, what should the state of Indiana be doing now to get ready for it?
That's a great question. First, I don't think there's going to be a BRAC in the foreseeable future. And the reason is we can't afford it. It costs a lot of money to close these places, and it's upfront money. And they'll say, well, eventually it'll start paying for itself. Not for at least 30 to 40 years. So we just can't afford it. Plus, I'm very reluctant to have another BRAC because we never know when we're going to need those things again. I don't know if y'all are familiar with Fort Greely up in Alaska. That was BRAC'd. Guess what? We had to open the place back up. Now we got interceptors up there. And we still don't know how much money it cost us to close that place and then open it back up. I am much more of the mind that if the Defense Department wants to shutter some places, just take them down and just kind of keep the roof where it won't leak in case we need it down the road. I'd rather do that and keep them in our inventory and kind of see what the future looks like before we close them. But I would say, and I would urge your installations always do, look at what's happening in the rest of the ecosystem. Who is weak and who's not, and what would fit better in your world, and start having those discussions with your delegation. Say what?
Like just about 80
Yeah. But that's literally, what I'm doing with the Anniston Army Depot right now. We're looking, and also look at what the future needs are going to be, and as we transform. How can you get in front of that and be a part of that ecosystem to support that. And I remind everybody all the time, the federal government doesn't make anything. We pay people like you to make stuff for us. So whatever we transform our military to do next, and we cut loose other stuff, you're going to be the same people that do the next thing for us. Because we just buy stuff. We pay people to do our missions for us.
Sir, got a question. First of all, I want to foot stomp on that BRAC point that you just made. Most of the BRAC decisions we made in the 1990s and early 2000s now look increasingly foolish.
Correct.
So, we went from 9 public shipyards to the United States Navy down to 4. And right now, 20% of the U.S. Navy cannot get underway because we're behind on repairs, including our submarine force, the most lethal aspect of the U.S. Navy, cannot dive. 20% is not certified for diving right now.
Yeah, I can tell you that during my chairmanship, no more naval infrastructure is going down. We're going to find a way to keep them warm, and we need to grow it a little bit if we can.
Absolutely. So that goes to my question for you, which is how do we expand shipyard capacity? Because it's not just about building ships. I'm all for building more. We're only going to build 9 in the Biden budget while he's decommissioning 23 ships out of the United States Navy. That's a losing proposition. But to keep ships like we already have, like the Ticonderoga class cruisers, we have to do repair in our Virginia class and our Los Angeles class submarines. So the last budget actually came out with a Shipyard Repair Act, but that focused on the public yards.
Yeah.
How do we get to the private yards and increase capacity within private industry to do additional ship repair to keep what we've got in better shape, sir?
Well, first of all, we got to recognize what has to be done, and the budgets like he just tendered us don't recognize that. The private sector just needs certainty. They just need to know that we're committed to what we are going to need for an extended period of time, that we're going to fund it. And that's what we're pushing to do. And I told you that we're asking for inflation plus 5%. I've been saying this for the last several years, and I'm going to keep saying it. It's going to take 3 to 5% increases over inflation for the foreseeable future for us to be able to do what we need to do. That's, I love Donald Trump, but it got under my nerves when he was campaigning for president the second time and kept saying, and I've rebuilt the military. No, you didn't. You started it. You did a pretty good job starting it. But it takes a long time to do that. And that's what I want people to understand. We are going to make a commitment to our naval needs, and we're going to fund it regularly. And if we send those signals to the private sector, they'll make the investments. And anyway, that's what I'm determined to do. So you won't see the president's budget is not going to be the budget. I keep reminding y'all that we'll write the budget, and we won't be decommissioning 24 ships and just building 9.
So the UK government is committed to supply harpoons now to the Ukrainians, lethal aid. What are your thoughts on that, permanent basing in the Black Sea, and how that might relate future technologies to the problems with the Straits of Taiwan?
Yeah, the harpoons are exactly what I would like for us to have given them last fall. And in fairness, Ukraine wasn't asking for them, but we knew that we would need them to defend against the Black Sea. And I told you a little while ago, I've been working with the EUCOM commander, General Walters, for over a year about this permanent basing. And that's exactly where he wants the Romanian base to be, is on the Black Sea. So we're thinking exactly the same way. It would have a chilling effect on a lot of Russia's aggressive behavior if we had that base there. And then the base that we're looking at in Poland is right close to the Ukrainian border. And the beauty about what's happening right now is we can tell Putin, we only did this because putting these bases there until you decided to invade.
We are a Guard community, National Guard community here with the 122nd. What do you see the future role of the Guard from a federal perspective? And then what does the funding look like to begin to move, bases like ours from older airframe products to the F-35 and other future airframes?
First of all, I'd love to see those warthogs over in Ukraine right now. If we make some scrap metals. One of the things I've been talking about with Chairman Milley is, we've got right now 180 of those A-10s in inventory, and the Air Force wants to get rid of 60 of them, including y'all's. There are people around, but there are allies that can use those things. And so I'm working now to get foreign military sales of those capabilities over to these Eastern European countries, along with some boat stuff. But now I forgot your question.
Right, how do you see the total funding component for guard units?
Oh, yeah, yeah, the guard is essential, and the fact is they're never gonna adequately fund that in their budget. They're gonna leave that to us, because one thing I tell you about the guard, they know how to work the process and make sure that their members of Congress are informed on what they need. So you'll never see it in the president's budget, you'll always see us put that in, subsequently when we actually write the budget. And I know of no intention of cutting. In fact, I see us strengthening the guard and reserve budgets, because they are so vital to us. We've seen that when we went to the Middle East. We just wore the guard and reserve out. We had that kind of pace. I will tell you that the Space Force, that was a project that I had initiated, and really proud that it became a reality. But this year, we're finally putting the Guard and Reserve into the Space Force. A lot of folks in the Guard were upset that we didn't put them in the beginning, but as we said when we stood it up, it's a process. We don't want to try to do everything at once and mess it up. We're going to put in, we're going to stand up just the bare minimum of a service, of this new service. The next year, we're going to add a little bit. The next year, we're going to, it's about 5 or 6 year process. So this will be the third year of that process, and we are getting the Guard and Reserve in there now.
Got time for a couple more questions?
Gentlemen, thanks for putting this on, and thanks for being here today. Dion Aiden with Cummins Inc., diesel engines, generators. There's a lot of military programs going on for the vehicles, Option Man Fighting Vehicle, Combat Tactical Truck, Infantry Squad Vehicles. We look forward, Marine Corps is even looking at switching out for the MTVR truck. Modernization, we look at the Army climate survey come out. For 2035, they want to have hybrid vehicles, 2050 electric vehicles. But to advance that technology, there's a lot of research development, especially to beef up the commercial, what's available today to make it robust enough for the military. Any comments on the future for vehicle platforms for combat vehicles and tactical vehicles for the future?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I'm glad you asked it. Before I talk about the vehicle in particular, I want to talk generically about this. You can help yourself and help us a lot by coming to us and letting us know about problems you're having interacting with the services. They have a terrible habit of writing these extravagant requirements for whatever they're trying to do that become impossible for the private sector to meet with, when what they need to be saying is, this is what I need to shoot down, or this is what I'm trying to accomplish. Do you have some way helping me do that? And the private sector will be very innovative and creative in coming with those solutions. That's one of the things that Palmer's trying to do right now. So the more that you can communicate with us about obstacles that you're having, the easier it is for us to get rid of them. Because let me tell you, they are not going to change at the Pentagon until we make them. They're just not. It's, I tell people I'm a member of an independent fundamentalist Baptist church. And at my church, if you try to change the hymnal or the color of the carpet, half the congregation breaks off and start a new church. So we got about 300 half-empty churches in Calhoun County where I live. But it's human nature. People just don't like change. Well, the Pentagon is the world's biggest independent Baptist church over there, because they don't change anything until we make them. Best example I can give you is the Goldwater Nichols, which changed the truck. They fought it like the Dickens. 5 years later, it's the best thing we ever did. Space Force, they fought it like you wouldn't believe. I got knives all in my back for years. Now everybody's just praising them. They don't do it unless you make them. So you will know about obstacles that you will encounter in trying to interact with the Defense Department before we will. But you got to come and tell Jim, or got to come and tell me what just happened with specifics so we can do something about it. Because I am determined to make those people go faster. And it's gonna make a lot of them mad, but I want to. And these vehicles, we're wanting them to simplify their specs and try to use more off-the-shelf kind of technology, or just tell somebody that currently has a vehicle, if you can make these modifications, we'll buy a specific quantity. But it's not their nature. It's just not their nature to do it. And that's going to be our job to change. And that's one of the things that I'm going to talk a lot about with my side of the aisle as we go into next year, is this to me is one of our top priorities that we all have to be focused on, is forcing them to go faster. You know, Adam Smith, the current chairman, has an example of, he got the specs to paint a floor on one of our ships, and it was several thousand pages of specs to paint a floor. And it should have been one line, paint the floor. But that's the Pentagon. And, you know, so we are determined to make them stop that stuff. And what I would love to see in about 3 or 4 years and see how we progress to that, at least if I got assassinated or not.
Last question.
So you just said a perfect softball. What are you doing and working with members and your ranking members like Congressman Banks to get ready to be active on January 3rd, next year?
Yeah, we have started meetings. The first one I had, I took Jim and the other ranking members out to dinner, and I told them what my priorities were going into this year. I told them to be looking at their subcommittees and what they want their priorities to be. And I'm doing that. I've done now 3 of those where I've gotten 4 or 5 of my members together. That way we can interact and they're not just listening. And I'm going to continue to do those between now and the time that we go in, so that when we do get the gavels, we already have our agenda of items that we expect to get accomplished that we think are realistic in the next Congress. And putting some, and we also got to, shine some light on some things of what the Biden administration, the Democrats are covering for them, and won't put pressure on them. I'm real careful, and I emphasize it all of them. I don't want everyone to lose our bipartisan flavor of our committee, because when you want to do big things, if it's really big, it's got to be bipartisan. But, that's not going to be a heavy lift for our committee. I just want to make sure that we treat them the way we want to be treated when we're in charge. But we are going to have a full menu of things that I intend to get done. I'll tell you one thing that is a priority for me is, I don't know if y'all are familiar with the Defense Innovation Commission. But they came up with an idea for a digital service academy to train our military personnel and our federal employees that support the military in cyber and artificial intelligence. The fact is, we just don't have enough people out there that can do this stuff. And so we're going to get that stood up. And in the meantime, we're going to be interacting with some more universities to use their services. But we intend to stand up a digital service academy that you will go to. You may only need a 6-month certificate. You may need a 2-year degree. You may need a 4-year, whatever. For every year we send you there and we pay for it, you got to work for us for that same amount of time, just like our current military service academies. That is going to be very critical as we try to go into this future world of warfighting that's going to look so much different than what we've got right now.
Thank you very much. I didn't mention before that you were born in Indiana.
That's right.
So when he becomes the chairman, we're going to make him the 10th member of the Indiana delegation. Thank you. We'll take a quick break.